Hi everyone, my name is Dimitri. I'm a psychotherapist and a recovered addict to pornography, and today I'm going to explain you how I quit pornography in 6 months. So in this video, I'm not going to talk too much about the backstory of the escalation into addiction and how it came to the point where it came to. If you're curious about that, let me know in the comments and I'd be more than happy to tell you more about what I remember of the escalation. But I really want to talk about the process of quitting. So I had met my current partner and fiance, Caroline, and after I'd met her, I stopped watching pornography for 3 years. And I thought I was done with pornography and that was it. And after 3 years with Caroline, suddenly I saw myself thinking about pornography again, craving pornography again, and ultimately watching pornography again. I hadn't set myself the intention to not watch pornography anymore. It had just happened spontaneously, but I was happy that this was behind me. But at that time, I felt like I was craving pornography. And so I watched pornography and I thought to myself, there is something very wrong and very strange here, because I am so passionately in love with this woman and we've had 3 incredible years. It's been 10 years this year, and yet I am turning to pornography. What's happening? What is it? And I thought there must be something really powerful and different about pornography, that it is drawing me in this way, even in this awesome relationship that I'm into now. And I also thought that, hey, pornography is the biggest source of traffic on the internet. That is one fact, but it is so strange that it is the biggest source of traffic on the internet and no one is talking about it. There is such a big taboo. And so why is it that the entire world is watching pornography, but no one's talking about it? And I thought to myself, either I'm over-interpreting this, or I'm paying too much attention to the details and it's just something fun people do, or there's something really powerful in that. There's something really key. And I started to look into an answer for that. What is so peculiar about pornography that everybody's watching it and no one's talking about it? Of course, this is sexuality. So sexuality is taboo in our society to an extent. But why is it that it's so peculiar about pornography that literally no one talks about it? That when you say the word pornography, everybody's there looking at their phone and no one's engaging in a conversation anymore. And so I realized that for me, the experience of pornography was an experience that was awesome. That was really great. When I watched pornography, I felt really good. Maybe I felt guilt after, maybe I felt shame, maybe I felt nothing, and it was just something that had happened. But the experience itself was really good, as for any addiction. And I thought, well, if I can make the experience a little bit less good, probably I won't be so inclined to want pornography in the near future. And then I noticed that whenever you're watching pornography, if you're suffering from pornography addiction or any other addiction, you will make the experience 100% awesome for yourself. You will tweak the parameters within pornography so that your experience is as best as it can be. If you're really into food and you decide that you're going to have an amazing meal, you're going to make your meal as awesome as it can be. And you're going to make that experience 100% satisfying for you. And you're going to add all the details to make this 100% satisfying. And I was doing the same with pornography, and people who are addicted to pornography do that. You make the experience with the medium, with what you consume, 100% awesome. And I thought to myself, if I make the experience a little bit less good, I will not crave it that much. And so I thought I have to find a way to make pornography not as good. And so I kept on watching pornography, secretly at the time still. And I started analyzing the content I was watching. And I started, in between videos, I had a spreadsheet, and I would make notes about what's happening in the video. So there'd be different columns, and it'd be talking about who are the characters in the video, what are the symbols in the video, is there a symbol of power, is there a symbol of a transformation. And at the time, I did pretty much the same sort of analysis that Lévi-Strauss, the French structuralist philosopher, would carry out in his research in decomposing myth. And so I took notes about these videos, and then I started to realize that there was a bit of a theme or several themes or patterns that emerged out of these analyses of the content I was consuming in pornography. And then it hit me that in pornography, I was watching content that was relieving me of my darkest beliefs about myself and about the world. It hit me that the pornography that I was consuming was instances where the wounded part of me, or the wounded part of the characters engaged in the content, video in that case, would win. The wounded part would win. In a myth, it's the glorious part, the part that is praised by society, that is going to win, and this is how moral is being taught. In pornography, it's an anti-myth. It's the opposite of a myth. It's the part where the wounded hero wins, that the pornography is really awesome or relatable, or that we can really climax on it. And that was a really big thing. I realized that pornography is a replay of my core wound. The pornography I consume speaks to me and is taboo for me and awesome for me because it is talking to me directly through my wounds. And I was like, wow, there's like a deep, very, very deep psychological aspect to this that is so profound and yet that feels so untapped. And so that made me feel better. It made me realize already that the reason why pornography had such a strong grasp on me was not because I was crazy. It was not because I was weak. It was because I was wounded. It was because I was carrying emotional wounds from the past, from childhood and teenagehood, and also through my adult life, that gave some grasp to this pornography. I was finding relief from these existential doubts and these traumas into the pornography I was watching. And that was an instant relief. I was like, wow, there is something very interesting there that I want to hack for myself, that I want to understand. So I let that go and I let that sink in. And then I was still with this idea that, okay, well, I know that now. How can I make pornography the experience less awesome for me? And so I started excluding the pornographic themes that I was craving the most or that I was enjoying the most. I was putting those aside and I started excluding these content. And so when you're watching pornography for many years, typically you'll know very well what keywords you're into and what themes you're into and what sort of personalities you're into, etc., etc. And so it was very easy to let aside. So I made a list of my favorite keywords and pornographic themes at the time, and I set aside these items one by one. And already excluding my top one or two items, I could feel such a huge difference that when I was consuming pornography involuntarily, excluding those keywords and those themes, it was pretty boring. Watching pornography was pretty boring. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. Like the draw to pornography, the appeal of pornography is collapsing. Like if I had an experience with pornography without those themes, then it would be pretty pretty boring, pretty neutral. And so I wasn't so tempted to watch pornography after that, because my mind would record that, hey, this experience was not actually awesome, I don't want to do it again, is just like kind of average. And there's a lot of other things that I would prefer to do rather than watching pornography, even for entertainment in the end, or even for sexual purposes. And so I did that for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and I saw that I was less interested in pornography, that I was watching it less, and it was also interesting to rediscover, when I let those themes from the past aside, what was my actual relationship with pornography. If I was not hooked onto those topics from the past, from my childhood, effectively since 11 years old, as an adult today, what kind of pornography was I consuming? What did that say about me, not from a moral standpoint, but from a psychoanalytic, psychological standpoint? And I kept on going because I was so hopeful about what I was observing, and I also thought that I touched on something really powerful. And after 6 months, I just kept on using that technique. I kept on analyzing myself. Every time I'd watch pornography, I'd forgive myself. I'd say, hey, this is something that I'm doing because there's a part of me that is hurt, and I'm connecting to that. I'm soothing that hurt through pornography. I'd like to do it in other ways, but I don't know any other tool to do that. And at the time, I could not invest in psychotherapy or any of these tools. So it was just me versus the screen. And yes, and after 6 months, that was it. I was done. I was done with pornography. I had excluded my favorite themes one by one, to the extent that watching pornography was not a worthy experience, with the knowledge that I had of the negative effects and impacts it had in my life. And so I consciously decided to stop watching pornography. But I could have never done that and made that decision seriously and with the knowledge that it's going to work, or the feeling that it's going to work, if I had not done this work of unconscious exploration before about the themes and how they spoke to me, and this progressive moving away from pornography. And I think the reason why it's worked is because it is progressive. So it is something that you can take your time to do. It is something that's very easy. It's not about not watching pornography, it's about excluding some themes. That's fine. Anybody who's addicted to something, if you take away the things they're addicted to, there's going to be a strong reaction in them. But if you say, hey, I'm just going to take a little piece, but you can have all the rest. I'll take 10% of it, but you can have 90% of it. They'll say, And so the reason why it worked was because it was easy, and you don't lose everything at the same time. Like if I were to watch pornography again, it was never the goal to not watch pornography. So there's nothing to lose in trying. If you relapse and you get back to your previous keywords, for example, that's fine. It's not a big loss. You can easily bring yourself back on track and continue to make the experience less good. And so it set me in a really hopeful context. It set me in a very cruisy way of quitting pornography. It was not this like hard knuckle sort of mindset that is really distressing. It was just like, hey, something that I can do here is, I can't take 100% of pornography today, but I can take 10% of it today, and that's fine. And I can still satisfy the part of me that is craving pornography, my wounded inner child, and the part of me that aspires to a better life, my inner adult. And this is how I quit pornography in 6 months. And so in these 6 months of analysis, I think I came across 2 techniques that now are key techniques that I use for my clients and that I teach. And the first one is to, before trying to quit pornography, to understand why we watch pornography, not because it's for entertainment or it's for fun or it's because we're curious, at the deep existential, psychological, psychoanalytical level. Why do we watch pornography? What are the wounds that are connecting us to pornography? So much so that we become addicted. And the second aspect that I uncovered was that, hey, you can actually quit, recover from an addiction progressively. It doesn't need to be a fight. It doesn't need to be very hard and distressing. It can be something that you set your mind to and you progressively chip it away. And your efforts are not all completely lost if you happen to relapse or not follow the technique on a given day. And these two techniques are absolutely essential both for a successful, healthy recovery, but also to get to know ourselves. And suddenly, pornography is not that horrible thing where we're wasting time. It becomes a tool for self-discovery, where from analyzing our fantasy, through fantasy analysis, we can understand who we are. And that is the most beautiful gift that someone could give you, especially someone who was supposed to be your enemy, that is pornography. And so after these 6 months, I stopped watching pornography for a few months, and then every 6 months or so, I would have an opportunity to watch pornography, either because I would be traveling or there'd be some big imbalance in my life and I'd be tempted. And it'd be a few days every 6 months, typically, where I'd watch pornography. But this was very different. The feeling was very different. The feeling was that of a sacred connection between my shadow, the wounded part of me, and me. It was like, oh, here's my shadow again. It's coming up. What does it want? And how does it relate to pornography? And what's that feeling? And I'd be able to observe, very much like in meditation, to observe from an outside perspective the relationship between my shadow and pornography. And so these moments would become sacred. They'd become very meaningful because I'd be able to learn so much about myself. And please believe me when I say it's not an excuse. I'm giving myself now, looking back, because thanks to these experiences, I was able to learn more about myself and the sexual fantasies I had and how they related to my emotional wounds. And so I was able to understand myself better. And every time I'd watch pornography and understand something different, I would be less drawn to it and more drawn to healing myself. And eventually, after 2 years, 3 years, I stopped watching pornography altogether. And I decided to heal those emotional wounds, which is now a technique that I am using as well with my clients. And with this combination of progressively moving away from pornography, identifying the wounds through fantasy analysis and EWTR, you've got a perfect combination for moving away from pornography effortlessly, learning about yourself. And with these 3 tools, moving away from pornography effortlessly, which I now call qualitative tapering or passive de-escalation, with fantasy analysis and understanding the link between my emotional wounds and the content I was watching, and with trauma reprocessing, I had the perfect 3 tools to first quit pornography, but also understand myself and grow at the deepest level that I know of still today as a person. And this is what I wish to everybody who is addicted to pornography, is to not be addicted to pornography anymore, but also to people in the world, is just to have access to this knowledge of the self, where we're not limited by our unconscious emotional wounds anymore, but we can just deeply fulfill our purpose, and we're not limited by these unconscious roadblocks. We understand ourselves at the conscious level, at the unconscious level, and we can manifest anything that we want to manifest in our lives. This is what I wish for you. This is what I wish for everybody. This is the contribution I want to make in the world. And so if you've been suffering from addiction to pornography and you tried so many different things and you tried NoFap and you tried going cold turkey and you tried promising yourself you'd never watch pornography again. Maybe you tried 12-step program. Maybe you tried therapy and none of that worked. I want to invite you to try these techniques and see how they can help you in your recovery and what you can learn from them by trying them out. And so if you'd like to do that, there is a link in the description below where you can join the platform I have created for helping men out of pornography addiction. I'll see you there.